I'm about to tell you about a problematic brown-nosing boss at my company. My name is Bob. I'm an office worker at a trading company. It's been about 4 years since I joined this trading company right out of college. I've become accustomed to my job and started being entrusted with more responsible tasks. It was around the time I was recognized as a competent salesperson. Kent became my direct supervisor. Nice to meet you, I'm Bob. I'm on your team. It was January. With the fiscal year change, even the desk arrangements in our department changed, and I ended up sitting very close to Kent. With the new fiscal year, I started working under Kent, so I promptly went to greet him, but he only responded briefly.
Oh, okay.
I thought he might not be very good at communicating with others, but a few days later, I discovered that wasn't the case.
Boss, you did excellent job again today.
A cheer akin to a loud yell aimed from Kent to our boss reached my ears. It might have been the first time I heard Kent's voice that high-pitched. He never behaves like that with me. With me, Kent is more like,
Hey, did you finish editing the documents I gave you the other day?
yes, I have. The document revisions Kent had asked for the previous evening. When I handed them to Kent, he quickly snatched them from me with a sly smile.
Good job.
Turns out, the task I was doing was actually something the boss had asked Kent to do, but he pushed it onto me because he found it bothersome. Kent was reporting the work I did as if it were his own to our boss.
Kent is doing it again.
Is this a usual thing?
Yay, it is. He often pushes his work onto unsuspecting newbies and takes the credit. Guys like us are just taken for granted.
As I watched Kent confidently report to the boss, a colleague at the next desk whispered that to me. It seems Kent habitually looks down on those below him and sucks up to those above. It was around that time. Since I started working in sales, I've begun to achieve noticeable results and even made it onto the monthly sales performance ranking. I've been consistently securing contracts. However, it was then that something happened. How come? While reviewing the sales figures for the month, I noticed several contracts I had secured were not reflected in the sales. I couldn't find the contracts either, and as I frantically searched, I heard the boss's voice.
Securing this number of contracts with this company is quite impressive, and you did a great job.
Thank you, boss. It's only natural to contribute to our company.
As I listened to the conversation between Kent and the boss, it seemed Kent had secured a major deal. I was about to dismiss it when I heard the company name mentioned by the boss. Wait a minute. The company the boss mentioned was unmistakably the one I had secured contracts with this month. Hey, can I see that for a second? I impulsively rushed over to the two of them and checked the contract that the boss was holding. Sure enough, it was definitely the contract I had secured the other day. However, the name of the person in charge was not mine, but Kent's. Why?
Hey, Bob. What's going on all of a sudden?
As I looked up from the contract to Kent, he was grinning at my panicked expression. It was clear that he was the one who had done this. The contract with this company had been said to be difficult to secure by other salespeople as well. I had been highly praised by my coworker when I secured it. But Kent had just snatched it away when it mattered most. I couldn't forgive him. However, between me, who had been with the company for 4 years, and Kent, who had been there much longer, it was obvious who the boss would believe. I couldn't pursue the matter with Kent any further. "I'm sorry to interrupt you." I said just that to the boss and went back to my desk.
Hey, Bob. Are you okay?
"Yes, I'm fine. Thank you." Honestly, I was extremely tired. But now, I had no way to reclaim that contract. Yet, this was just the beginning of hell. From then on, every time I achieved something, Kent would snatch it away. The monthly sales figures clearly showed my numbers decreasing and Kent's increasing. Everyone in the sales department could see it, yet nobody said anything. It wasn't that they didn't say anything. They couldn't. Since Kent was always ingratiating himself with those in higher positions, those at the top wouldn't suspect him. During this time, the president made a visit to the sales department for an inspection.
Is everyone doing well?
Yes, our department is.
Kent immediately ran up to the president and started buttering him up. Not only that, but he also started talking to the president's daughter who was with him.
Well, miss, welcome.
Hello, Kent.
You look beautiful as always. Truly.
Oh, thank you.
The president's daughter, Jessica, seemed a bit put off by Kent's aggressive flattery. She glanced at me, seemingly asking for help. I quickly stood up and went over to Kent and Jessica. "Kent, I need to ask you something."
What? Can't you see I'm busy?
When I spoke to him, Kent's expression changed drastically. "Yes, I understand, but it's urgent. Could you help me, please?"
Miss, my apologies. Excuse me for a moment.
Kent firmly grasped Jessica's hands and said, and then followed me to my desk. As it turned out, the issue was urgent, and Kent scolded me severely.
Hey, you could have resolved this yourself. Don't waste my time.
I didn't mean to take it away, but I'm sorry.
Exactly.
As soon as the president left, Kent started yelling at me. Around me, sympathetic glances were cast my way. This was the beginning of even more intensified harassment from Kent. Kent stole my work and harassed me. I felt like I was reaching my breaking point. A year passed. I think I did well to last under Kent for a whole year. I feel like praising myself for enduring that long. With the new fiscal year starting, fresh recruits who had just completed their training began to be assigned to various departments. 3 people were assigned to the sales department. Among them was a woman named Mary. Each newcomer was assigned to an employee as their direct subordinate. Mary, the only female among the recruits, became my colleague. "Nice to meet you, Mary."
Pleased to meet you too.
Mary was very motivated and approached me with the eagerness typical of a newcomer. Having been almost crushed under Kent's supervision for so long, talking with Mary was very soothing. However, just because she was associated with me, Mary started to receive harassment from Kent.
Hey, Mary, you're slow at your job.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How long are you spending on this task?
Well,
Kent harassed Mary while I was away from my desk. When I discovered this, I immediately defended her. Kent, what's the matter?
Maybe it's because your teaching is so poor that she can't do her job properly.
Mary has just joined the company. It's natural she doesn't know everything yet.
We'll see about that.
Although Kent didn't do anything to Mary when I was around, he started asking her personal questions when I was not.
Mary, do you have a boyfriend?
Well, no,
You look plain, probably don't have one. Have you ever seen the boss's daughter who comes by occasionally? Such grace and beauty. You're no match for her.
Kent mocked her like this. Mary looked like she was about to cry but was desperately trying to hold it together.
Excuse me, Bob.
Mary approached me for advice during a late-night overtime session. She told me about Kent's personal questions she faced and how she was being compared to the boss's daughter. Hearing this, I was utterly appalled by Kent's horrendous behavior. The next day, I confronted Kent fiercely. Kent, do you realize what you've done?
What are you talking about?
I confronted him first thing in the morning as he arrived at work. Kent frowned in annoyance at me. But since Mary hadn't recorded anything Kent had said, it was just his word against mine, and he kept insisting there was no proof. Even without proof, Mary's heart was hurt. I couldn't stand Kent trying to brazen it out and make us the bad guys.
So, you want to be sued for defamation?
That's not it. If I got sued, I wouldn't be able to protect Mary from him anymore. Facing Kent, I made a decision. Changing Kent was probably impossible. I had to change, and it was up to me to transform this sales department. Having resolved to change my approach, I began preparing methodically. A month later, I implemented a plan I had been nurturing. I applied a special process to streamline the work I was responsible for. When Kent was not in the department, I explained this new method to Mary. This allowed me to smoothly delegate tasks to Mary. Additionally, I facilitated collaboration with other departments, which allowed work to progress concurrently. By collaborating with other departments, I was able to keep Kent away as he did not want others to know about the harassment he was perpetrating. Since I began working with other departments, my interactions with Kent significantly decreased. Consequently, the harassment Mary received from Kent stopped completely. As I started interacting with other departments, my reputation improved, and this enhancement spread throughout the company, earning me a good reputation for my work. Then, one day,
Hey, Bob, I need to talk.
it had been a while since Kent approached me to talk. We entered an available meeting room, and Kent started speaking.
So, I heard you're getting married.
Yes,
Why didn't you tell me?
well, that's because. The truth was, I had been engaged for quite some time, and plans for the wedding with my fiancée were already set. Ideally, I should have informed Kent, but I thought it would not end well if he attended, so I hadn't told him about it. I wondered where he could have heard about it. Kent was persistently asking about my marriage and my fiancée.
You do realize I'm your direct boss, right?
I'm sorry about that, but I was planning to inform you, Kent. I just wanted to keep it a bit private because of my fiancée.
Do you really think that excuse will work with me?
Kent seemed really upset that I was getting married without consulting him. Ironically, I should be the one angry after all the harassment I've endured from him. He seems to be putting his own actions aside.
Bob, you better remember this.
Kent left those words behind and stormed out of the meeting room. A few weeks later, Kent summoned me again and dropped a bombshell.
You're fired.
What? When I tried to protest, Kent stopped me with a gesture. He handed me a paper he was holding in his hand. It was a termination notice, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I can't accept this.
It's decided whether you accept it or not. This is proof. You should realize you've been dead weight to the company all along.
That's outrageous. Without a solid reason given, I had no choice but to accept the termination. Disheartened, I returned to my desk only to find it completely cleared. What's going on?
Kent was quite elated clearing your desk right after you went to the meeting room. Wasn't he a bit late coming?
Seriously. It seemed Kent truly resented my presence. Though I had tolerated the harassment, it appears he couldn't handle the fact that he was no longer able to harass me after I started coordinating with other departments. I packed up my things and left the company. With a wedding on the horizon, how would I explain this to my fiancée? With these thoughts, I headed home. Since then, I had been wondering if there was any way I could get back at Kent. And the solution I came up with was to invite him to my wedding. I sent a wedding invitation to Kent. He sent back his RSVP right at the deadline, marked with the attending. It seems Kent will be attending my wedding. Knowing Kent, he probably thinks he's going to make a mockery of my wedding and ruin it. But I won't let that happen, and it won't happen.
And now, the entrance of the bride and groom.
The ceremony was family only, but we had invited workplace colleagues including Kent to the reception. We entered amid applause and cheers. Then, an out-of-place shout erupted.
What? What is this all about?
The loud voice was so out of place at a wedding that the clapping stopped. Only the music continued, and all eyes suddenly turned to Kent.
Wait, Bob, what? And next to you is Miss.
I walked slowly towards a visibly shaken Kent, sweating profusely. Thank you for coming today, Kent, but since this is a public event, could you please keep it down? Kent's face turned pale as he grasped the situation. He looked like he was about to faint. Once I saw Kent stagger back to his seat, I returned to my bride and we headed to our table. Mary gave us a speech. Actually, Mary and Jessica, the president's daughter, came from the same college, and they were friends. It turned out that I had gotten to know Jessica through Mary, and that had led to our marriage. While Mary was speaking, Kent seemed to be shaking. No wonder. He probably had his sights set on the president's daughter. That's why he had been sucking up to both the president and his daughter. But instead of his hopes being realized, an employee he had forcibly ousted ended up marrying Jessica. And if it became known that Kent had forced me out of the company, it was easy to imagine what would happen to him. As part of the bride and groom's speech, I detailed how I met her. Originally, I planned to tell this story, but to corner Kent even further, I decided to tell it in more detail than planned. In fact, I had met Jessica on occasions other than when the president came for department inspections. The boss who handled the same company had a connection with the president's daughter and often went to greet her. That's when she said to me,
"Weren't you the one who helped me from Kent back then?"
"Yes, that was me." I had completely forgotten that I had shielded her from Kent. Jessica seemed very grateful for that moment, thanking me over and over again. No, I just did what anyone would do.
"I couldn't just disrespect one of my father's employees in front of him. Thanks to Bob, I was able to avoid upsetting my father without harming his mood."
Jessica laughed softly, looking very charming. Initially, that was the extent of my relationship with her. I would go to greet her when my boss went to greet her. That was all. However, after I started talking more with Mary, I found out that Jessica actually attended the same college as Mary and they were close friends.
Jessica was really thankful to you, Bob. She keeps bringing it up.
Mary said this with a laugh. I hadn't expected to be thanked so much by Jessica, and in hindsight, being yelled at by Kent afterwards turned out to be a good thing. It feels nice to be appreciated like that.
Bob, you have a big grin on your face.
Don't tease me. I laughed it off at the time, but I never imagined that I would actually end up dating the president's daughter and even getting married. Apparently, Mary had been spreading a good word about my reputation and performance at work. Isn't that a bit of an exaggeration?
It's all true.
Mary laughed at me. At the end of my speech, I pick up the microphone and say one last word. I plan to take over the company in the future. For that, I want to start learning about various aspects of management from now. Many of the people who work in the company I will inherit are here today. I hope for your support when I become the president. After I finished my speech, there was a loud clattering of chairs in the venue. When I looked in that direction, I saw Kent hastily leaving the venue. It seemed he couldn't bear the hostile atmosphere. The day after the wedding, I went to the company as the next president. First, I visited the planning and development department, marketing department, HR department, and finally, the sales department to greet everyone in all the departments. Right after I arrived at the sales department, I apologized for suddenly leaving the company, but it seemed that all the employees understood the situation and told me, "Don't worry about it." "Hi, Kent." As I approached Kent, who was working at his desk, he jumped a bit.
What's up?
"I need to talk to you. Let's go to the meeting room." Usually, Kent would have resisted such a request, but this time he followed me quietly. As soon as I closed the meeting room door, Kent, who had been solemnly following me, apologized to me.
I'm so sorry.
"Kent, please lift your head."
I messed up. Forgive me.
Does he realize what's going to happen to him? Kent was apologizing repeatedly in a tearful voice. Seeing this as an opportunity, I asked him how he had managed to fabricate that termination notice. Shaking, Kent confessed everything he had done at that time. Kent had made false reports to the HR department. He tampered with the system and falsely accused me of hindering work and fidging sales figures. Furthermore, he went out of his way to other departments to claim that the smooth handling of tasks I had facilitated was actually his doing. and he spread rumors that he had to fix an irreversible mistake I had made. He used the temporary drop in my reputation to push towards my dismissal. I recorded all of Kent's confessions and presented them to the current president. Kent's false reports, as well as the private matters that Emily had accused me of. After a thorough review, it was concluded there was no room for leniency, and Kent was dismissed. After firing Kent, I reviewed our employees' evaluation and hiring criteria to ensure no one else would be falsely dismissed or harassed by their superiors like I was. I worked hard to create a more open and welcoming work environment. Returning to the company, I was entrusted with a major project as the next president, and as a leader, I am committed to ensuring that everyone can work comfortably